Al-Zarqawi was reputed to be the most feared man in Iraq when he was alive. He was brutal, fierce, and left a bloody trail of killings, bombings, and kidnappings in his wake. At that time, he was on a list of the world's most wanted terrorists. Although he had a humble beginning, he evolved into a terrorist with heinous crimes attached to his name. The hunt for Al-Zarqawi is portrayed as a story laden with bloodshed, betrayal, and frustration, which finally led to his extermination. Why hunt for Al-Zarqawi? He was a Jordanian jihadist who ran a terrorist training camp in Afghanistan. He became known after moving to Iraq to perpetrate several killings and launching brutal attacks. He was addressed by his followers as the Sheikh of the Slaughterers. He formed a militant jihadist group called Jama'atil Tawhid wal Jihad in 1999. He was the commander of the group until his death in June 2006. On several occasions, he recorded audio and video messages owning up to several acts of violence and havoc in Iraq, including brutal hostage executions and suicide bombings. Zarqawi also antagonized the US and other Western military forces. He vehemently opposed their presence in Iraq. The Western support for the existence of Israel didn't sit well with him either. So in 1999, he tried to blow up a hotel in Amman, where many Israeli and American tourists stayed for New Year's Eve in the year 2000. The US State Department stated that Zarqawi was behind the deadly attack of the Canal Hotel bombing, a hotel that housed the United Nations headquarters in Iraq, on August 13, 2003. This attack killed 22 people, including the United Nations Secretary-General's Special Iraqi Envoy. In 2004, Zarqawi joined Al-Qaeda, a jihadist group that enabled him to perpetrate brutal killings and destruction. He received financial help from Al-Qaeda, which enabled him to set up training camps for terrorists in Afghanistan. Al Jazeera broadcasted an audio tape of bin Laden on December 27, 2004, in which he described Zarqawi as the Prince of Al-Qaeda in Iraq. Zarqawi was the mastermind of a series of deadly bomb attacks in Casablanca, Morocco, and Istanbul, Turkey in 2003. It was also noted that Zarqawi trained people in the use of poison to attack people in Europe. Officials in the United States ascribed over 700 killings in Iraq to Zarqawi during the Iraq invasion. Those killings were mostly bomb attacks. However, the number of killings increased by the thousands by March 2004. Zarqawi launched an attack on the Shia shrines in Karbala and Baghdad. This was one of Zarqawi's biggest atrocities in Iraq. This attack killed over 180 people. As if that was not enough, Zarqawi once again launched an attack in December 2004, which killed over 60 people in a car bomb attack in Najaf and Kampala. In November 2005, Zarqawi's group claimed responsibility for the Amman bombings that killed 60 people in 3 hotels. Several Palestinian Authority and some Chinese defense delegates were part of that tragic event. Through an internet recording released in January 2005, it was stated that Zarqawi condemned democracy and described it as the big American lie. He condemned the participants of the Iraq January 30th election. He described them as enemies of Islam. He stated, "We have declared a bitter war against democracy and all those who seek to enact it." He sees democracy as against the rule of Allah, because it allows one to choose one's own religion. Al-Zarqawi's personal life. Al-Zarqawi's real name was Ahmad Fadil al-Nazal al-Kalela. He was born into a poor Jordanian family on October 30th, 1966. He was not very good at words, and it was said that he would not compromise on any of his beliefs. He was raised in an industrial town named Zarqa in the north of Amman. He had 7 sisters and 2 brothers. His father's death brought economic distress to the family, leading Al-Zarqawi to become a street thug. He was known for his numerous acts of violence, terror, and his heavy alcohol intake. He was nicknamed the Green Man because he had many tattoos. Zarqawi was a high school dropout and exhibited criminal traits in his youth. Little wonder he ended up a terrorist. It's recorded that he had 4 wives. His first wife, Muhammad, was a Jordanian woman who was around 40 years old when Al-Zarqawi was killed. She lived in Zarqa, Jordan, with their 4 children. Zarqawi's second wife was 14 years old when he married her. She was a daughter of an Islamic militant and was killed along with Zarqawi and their child when she was 15. Zarqawi's third wife was also recorded to have perished with her husband during the airstrike. The fourth wife was from a Pakistani tribe around Peshawar. Joint Task Force. With the increasing spread of crime, violence, and the destruction of lives and properties by Al-Zarqawi and his group, it became a priority to bring down the group and their leader before they wreak more havoc. A secret joint American-British unit was created to hunt down the most dangerous insurgents. It was called Task Force 145. TF-145 is an extension of a strike force originally formed as Task Force 11. It later changed to Task Force 121 and then Task Force 626 and 77 respectively. It is believed that the task force played a significant role in the hunt for Al-Zarqawi and his eventual elimination. Also, the task force was prompted to disrupt Al-Qaeda operations in Iraq and, to a lesser extent, Afghanistan. The team came together in the summer of 2003, made up of first-class personnel from American Delta Force, Navy SEAL Team 6, Army Rangers, and British Special Forces, plus members of the CIA. The task force operation was very autonomous in nature. They carried out several operations without requiring approval from conventional command structures. It's recorded that the task force played an important role in digging up the intelligence that led to the elimination of wanted terrorist Al-Zarqawi and several members of his group. Through several raids carried out by the task force, the killings by the Al-Qaeda group were drastically reduced. Task Force 145 was very swift in action. They treated information with a matter of urgency. They used a process called the unblinking eye, denoting a tight linkage between intelligence and operations. These Special Forces personnel were not conventional in their appearance. They were allowed to grow beards and wear civilian clothes. They were also noted for the use of aggressive interrogation tactics, criticized by some people. They were also reputed to employ a cowboy mentality, enabling them to carry out 6 to 7 operations within one day. They destroyed Al-Qaeda safe houses and captured operatives using a mixture of intelligence together with ground and air assaults. The task force was always on the go. An unarmed Special Force operative described their fast-paced method in this statement: "You'll hit a place, get intelligence that drives you to another one. We're cops. Hit and go, hit and go." Over time, it was reported that Task Force 145 had captured or killed about 200 Al-Qaeda associates and operatives since 2004. False claims on Al-Zarqawi's death. Several false claims pointed to Al-Zarqawi's death before he was eventually killed. For instance, unverified reports came from Afghan Northern Alliance in early 2002 that Al-Zarqawi had been killed in a missile attack in Afghanistan. This was also claimed to be true in several news sources. However, after some time, a report was filed by Kurdish groups that Zarqawi had not been killed in the missile attack, but nevertheless was critically injured and had to go to Baghdad to have his leg amputated as a result of the injuries sustained. However, 2 years later, in 2004, some senior US military officials in Baghdad refuted the claim that Zarqawi's leg was amputated. It was stated at the time of the report that the terrorist still had both legs. Reports, according to Knight Ridder, stated that Zarqawi's leg amputation was something officials now acknowledge to be incorrect. Also, the death of Al-Zarqawi was reported by an insurgent group in Iraq in April 2003. The report stated the terrorist was unable to escape the missile strike targeted at him because of his prosthetic legs. His followers also claimed he was killed in a bombing raid by the US in the north of Iraq. Aside from all these false rumors of his death, Al-Zarqawi was also reported dead in a coalition assault on a house in Mosul. It was reported that 5 people were killed in that assault, while the other 3 died through suicide belts of explosives. This claim brought US and British soldiers to search the remains of the deceased people, with US forces using DNA samples to identify the dead people. Nevertheless, none of those remains belong to him. The hunt for Al-Zarqawi. Prior to Al-Zarqawi's death, the task force came very close to capturing him in February 2005. Through gathered intelligence, part of the task force set up an ambush for him on a long highway, but he managed to escape. According to reports, one of the machine gunners had Al-Zarqawi's vehicle in his sights and asked for permission to fire, but the lieutenant from a ranger unit in charge of the roadblock denied him permission. The lieutenant did not believe the machine gunner was 100% certain that Zarqawi was in that vehicle, hence his escape on that day. However, the hunt for Al-Zarqawi did not stop. It was stated that the intelligence gathered by TF-145 led to the trail and capture of Al-Zarqawi's spiritual advisor, Sheikh Abd al-Rahman. That incident led the military forces and 2 500-pound bombs carried by F-16s to Al-Zarqawi's hideout. At the end, when Al-Zarqawi was killed, it was reported that TF-145 was one of the first groups on the scene to secure the area along with Iraqi police, where his body laid. They were also part of the first group to identify his body. Conclusion. One man's life doesn't signify an end to an insurgency. These were the words of Major General William Caldwell in a press conference in Baghdad when he announced the death of Zarqawi. The task force did not stop working after the death of Al-Zarqawi. It was said they would focus on taking down the rest of his remaining organization. It's believed they discovered a treasure trove of intelligence in the destroyed building during the operation to kill Al-Zarqawi. However, in 2015, an anonymous author in the New York Review of Books wrote that 9 years after the death of Al-Zarqawi, described him as being responsible for turning insurgency against US troops in Iraq into a Shia-Sunni civil war. A Washington reporter, Joe B. Warwick, also argues that Al-Zarqawi was the founder of the group ISIS. The reporter also believed that Al-Zarqawi expanded the already broad parameters of violence in Iraq and the Middle East. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to hit the like button and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of our exciting videos. Till next time, goodbye.